Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining Leona and me this evening. So we're brought to you by the Burnaby Division of Family Practice as part of our Empowering Patients public education program. We've been doing it for 10 years, but doing it online since the pandemic. And it's been great that we can reach more people, but of course, we'd love to see you in person as well. So today's topic is just in time for Valentine's Day, which my wife says is just a nothing holiday that's just for people selling more flowers and presents and chocolate. Because every day is like Valentine's Day in my house.
Oh, that sounds good.
So we're talking about all relationships in general. This is one of my best friends. Well, it's actually my wife's not watching. This is my best friend, Teddy. It's our Labradoodle. So unconditional love, just like a toddler when I come home, even if it's just after taking out the trash. So that's what we should aspire to with our loved ones and our friends. So today we'll emphasize why relationships matter and the impact of loneliness on our health, mental as well as physical well-being, and the important power of connection, that human connection that we were made to crave and that really nurtures us. We'll talk about the different ways we see the world and different ways that we can see the world and how we can see one another in fresher, brighter, more compassionate ways and how we share our stories and how to transform old stories that aren't working for us anymore. We'll talk about four mindsets that can inform better how we relate to one another. And I'll also just share some good references and resources if you'd like to work a little bit more on your relationship. So there's some good books that I recommend. They're also in the key points handout that Leona's going to provide to you with the link. And Leona's here to share some of the resources also through the Burnaby Division of Family Practice and our primary care network. So welcome, Leona.
Hi. Hello, Dr. Wong. Nice to be here with you and the rest of our guests tonight. So as Dr. Wong said, that I have several resources that we like to share with regards to the Empowering Patients program and sort of beyond what else is happening around wellness in the Burnaby community. If you've never been here before, I will be popping some links into the chat while Dr. Wong gets into his presentation. So just take a moment and click on those links if when you get a chance. You can bookmark some of them, and I will be emailing the link out. Some of those links out to you tomorrow morning, so you can expect to get them. But the first one will be our Patients page, and that includes upcoming talks. That includes recordings of previous talks, so including tonight's will be uploaded on there. As Dr. Wong said, his presentations that he takes a lot of time updating and making sure they're the most current relevant information, and then some downloadable resources that you can download, print, share. They're really impactful. So the next link will be our brand new Burnaby Division website. We're very proud of it. It has a lot of information about the work that's happening to support our family doctors in Burnaby. They're very important to us, and we do our best to support them. Our Burnaby Primary Care Networks, or PCN, is work that's happening in collaboration with the Health Authority and our community partners. And there's health supports and there's social supports and there's a lot of information. So if you want to click through on that one and you can poke around and see what's going on in that world. If you do not have a family doctor yet, I'm going to post a link and as to how you can get on the wait list and get attached to a family doctor. And also, we shared at our last talk that Dr. Wong has brought his HealthWise column back to life since the local newspapers, the Burnaby Now and such, have shut down, unfortunately. But Dr. Wong is actually sharing his new HealthWise column monthly on our Burnaby PCN website. So you can watch for those. You can bookmark that page and go back and see Dr. Wong's articles. Other than that, I'm going to post a link to our next talk, which is going to be on Tuesday, March 24th, and that's called What You Should Know About Lung Disease. So that's a good one. Again, you can send the link to family and friends who you think might find that information important and relevant. And once we shut down this webinar tonight, when we're all finished after questions and such, there will be a short evaluation. So if you can take a couple of minutes just to fill out the evaluation for us, Dr. Wong and I look at it every single time, and we take your feedback to heart as we continue to plan for the Empowering Patients program. So that's it. That's all I have for now, and I will let Dr. Wong take over.
Thanks, Leona, and thank you for all your support for this program and then all the wonderful things you're doing for community. And I just enjoyed working with you so much over the past decade.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. So, remember the pandemic? What did we learn during the pandemic? We learned what really mattered to us when we didn't have it as easily and as available. We knew that our relationships with one another is the most important thing. And without that human connection, we suffered emotionally and physically. And we are so much better together. But have we now become complacent now that COVID's still out there, but we're able to meet each other, have parties, go out to dinner together, connect in the usual way. Um, but we still often take for granted all our relationships and our most important ones too. So why don't we invest more thought and time and energy into our relationships since it's so important to us? So I'd like you to think about what you would say to a friend, a family member, a partner, your neighbor, a coworker that you normally see every day, Monday to Friday, except this long weekend, um, or a classmate from elementary or high school, someone you've known for a long time. What would you say if today was the last time you would see them? Because that, of course, could be any one of those. And then what is holding you back from saying those things? Because when you think about it, think about where you spend your time at different stages in life. So in in the first school age years of our life up to high school graduation, we spend pretty well all of our time, almost all of our time with family and then kids at school. But really all of the time outside of school is with your family, your immediate family. And then starting with friends. And then in our 20s, we spend a lot more time with our friends, a little bit less with our family, especially once we move out or go away for school, and then establishing our own individual household and work life. And then you see less and less of mom and dad and siblings. And as you grow and have a family of your own, you're spending the same thing like your parents did with you, with your own kids and doing things with other families of the same age group, but you spend very little time with your own friends, especially those you hung out with in your early 20s, and less time, of course, with your older family members who raised you. And then as we get busy with life, the kids grow up, they move away, spend a lot of time with work, a lot of time with work friends, and then we eventually retire and may not see them again. Meanwhile, everyone else is getting older and moving around, and you never know when you're not going to see that classmate again. You never know how much more time you have. But the number of, as we get older, especially at midlife, the number of times you're going to see a lot of your older relatives, like parents and aunts and uncles, and even older cousins, um, is limited. Maybe if you only see them a couple times a year, you may not see them more than a dozen times. So each of those times is precious, but we don't always think about it. So think about that and think about friends you haven't seen for a long time. Is there something you would like to remind them of? So a palliative care physician, Ira Bjork, wrote a book called The Four Things That Matter Most. So when talking to people at the end of life, these are kind of the key things that were the most important things for them to say to their loved ones and to their friends. One is to forgive one another, so to ask for forgiveness, and to forgive any past slights that you're holding against somebody else. And to remember the thank you, to express gratitude for not only the relationship, but the thousands and thousands of acts of kindness and generosity and that helping hand when you needed it in the past. And then finally, to give that heartfelt, I love you, to really express your love. Often we're too shy to say that to even our best friends. So the four things that matter most, letting go of past hurts and um, showing appreciation for your relationship and what the other has done, and expressing your deep love for one another. And we don't have to wait to the end of life. So ideally, we're always thinking with this mindset, knowing that all our moments together are precious because we don't know how much more time we have. There's so many sources of separation, especially living in a big city, suburban area like we do. Um, and there's so many vulnerable people, people that move to the city for different opportunities or refugees from another country or another province. Many of them don't have the usual network of family and friends that they can turn to. So life is quite lonely. There's so many that are speaking different languages other than English. And we don't realize if English is our first language, how hard it is for people to learn this language and how much easier it would be for them just to communicate in the language that they're comfortable with. And then there's the visible minorities. There's the elderly who are living alone without any family to support them. And there's lots of people without lucky for us that we have access to computers, to the internet, to be able to get together at least virtually. So there's so many that don't have that access, and there's so many that are homeless. That and I'll take a moment to describe some of the special challenges of people suffering from loneliness, like people that do not have a place to stay in a family. So for early humans, it was deadly to be separated from your family, from your tribe. It was just dangerous to be outside of the group because of the dangers from other people outside of the tribe, but also from being exposed in the wilderness to wildlife and other dangers. So even today, when we're isolated in a big city, no support, no family, no people to talk to that really know us, our stress levels rise. And because our bodies sense that there is danger of being isolated and alone. But that same thing kind of shifts us into that fight or flight mode, when you're feeling really anxious, you're super vigilant, looking for things that are wrong around you and sensing danger. So we actually become hyper vigilant, being more suspicious of other people, seeing more danger around us, even when it's not as dangerous as we think. And we begin to see human contact as being more threatening. We don't know if someone is going to rob us or to harm us or take advantage of us. So this compels those that are suffering from extreme loneliness and isolation to disconnect further and even push others away that want to connect. That human connection is one of the key social determinants of health. And long-term loneliness is as dangerous to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases the risk for depression and anxiety. It increases the risk for heart disease and premature death. Whereas social connections reduce these risks. And you could think of three different types of loneliness, and of course, the three corresponding ways that we can connect. There's the intimate loneliness, longing for someone with whom you share a deep bond, with whom you feel heard and accepted. So looking for that right person, or being in a relationship where you don't feel connected, like being married, but still feeling like lonely. So actually, I've talked to a number of uh, patients who are married but feel really lonely because they don't have that connection with their spouse. There's the social loneliness, the need for genuine friendships, not just Facebook friends, like feeling you're part of a network of friends in real life that you can see in person and connect with and that care about you. And there's collective loneliness, the need to feel a part of a greater community. And we need all three types of connection: intimate, social, and collective connection to thrive. But of course, there are ways out of loneliness. So if we are isolated, it would be great if we could recognize that our alarm settings are turned up very high just because we are isolated and feeling endangered, and that we might be over vigilant and know that we might be seeing other people um, who we see as a threat, that we really need to connect with other people. And we could seek out ways to be of service to others and to join local groups with other people that are looking for connections too. You could work with the food banks, with the local church groups, or other volunteer groups. And one of the references in the handouts is Burnaby Neighborhood House. It's Burnaby recognizes the importance of social connection to get people out of their isolation. And we have at least two neighborhood houses, which are community centers. So anyone that lives in the Burnaby community can come and meet with other people, make new friends, a lot of fun activities. So my dad really enjoys attending the Burnaby neighborhood house, and he has good friends. The staff from the city of Burnaby are just so kind and patient, and listening to all his stories. And they're so helpful if you have problems with technology, like using your tablet or trying to get into one of these webinars. They're so helpful with and patient with people of all ages. So there are neighborhood houses in pretty well every major city in BC. We all play a role in helping others out of loneliness too. So we need to accept our kind of individual and collective responsibility to help the vulnerable and the isolated. So reach out and welcome new neighbors so they really feel like they're cared for and they're part of a community. Um, we know that with extreme heat and with cold and air quality problems, that it's so important that we check in with our elderly or those we know in our community that are isolated, just to make sure they're okay and to know that they're cared for. And there's so many small acts of kindness that every one of us is able to do that can make a difference. They're just the first steps towards greater connection. And we'll talk a little bit about our weak and our close links in relationships. We have to meet people with where they are, and not to become on too strong or bold when someone is a little isolated and feeling a little bit threatened. So we have to be gentle and kind and offer people something that they need or want. We need to listen to others' stories and understand that they might be more fearful or suspicious just because of their situation or their life experiences, if they've survived trauma um, and isolation and other types of threats. So as I mentioned, we have strong ties where we think of our core group of best friends and our family. We have weak ties, and this is the many, many people we encounter throughout each week and sometimes every day, that they're not our best friends that we hang out with after working on weekends, and they're not related, but they are actually very important parts of our sense of connection. So, as I said, they all matter. So, a casual, friendly conversation has been shown to improve the mood of the person you're striking up the conversation with and yourself as well. It does give a bit of a lift. It feels so much better when I get to work in an elevator and just strike up a conversation randomly about the weather or current events with someone in the elevator, because we have a very slow elevator, even though it's only 2 floors to go up. It's very slow. So it feels so much more positive and goes so much faster if you strike up a friendly conversation with someone. You both end up smiling and feeling a bit lighter. So you can make a big difference that way. And yeah, there's so many nice people that I see regularly throughout the week, like the staff at our community centers, the lifeguards, other patrons at the pool that I see every day. I swim 7 days a week. Um, the the man that cleans up our elevators and the garage in our office building, he's a really kind and nice man. So it's always great to say hi to him and check up on how he did over the weekend. So these little conversations and connections really do, they're part of the rhythm and rapport of everyday life. And the more you strike up these little conversations, the more comfortable you feel with one another. So they really give a lift to my day. What we think of as weak ties make a big difference in our mental health and sense of connection as well. Also, uh, the kind of people that you can meet in pickleball, strangers you meet when you're joining a group in pickleball, they come from every walk of life and sometimes almost every age group and different professions. Some are retired, some are still working. You get a wealth of ideas and connections. So that could be an opportunity for a new job, or that could be your new best friend. My son has a lot of great friends that he met just from playing pickleball when he moved to a new city. And yeah, so some of his best friends are people he met just playing pickleball in the local community. Yeah, and just acknowledge other people instead of walking past someone in a hallway. Really makes them feel acknowledged as another feeling, caring human being. So we all need to feel acknowledged, to be heard and recognized just for the value we are, just for being a human being, for being who we are. And relationships change over time. So I'm just thinking about, how our relationships with our parents change over time. When we're toddlers, our parents are like everything. We're always looking to them for approval or just how to behave and how to relate to other people. They teach us all the basics and the important things and life lessons as you're growing up. And then you become a teenager, then you think your parents are like so totally uncool. So your dad used to be Superman, but now he seems to be more like Clark Kent, a little bit awkward, and you get embarrassed to be around your parents as a teenager. And then you think you know so much more than your parents. And then I realized in my mid-20s how smart my parents were. Suddenly they became really smart again um, when I came to my senses after getting over my youth. And then you see each other in different ways. And then often adult children may be looking after parents when they're suffering from disability or advanced age as well. So our roles change and evolve, and our relationships change as well. I have a old family picture of my kids when they're about 3, 5, and 8 years old. Yeah, when they were really little, and how our lives are so different compared to a more recent picture when they're all grown up. And now, um, one of my sons, Adam, just got married last month to a wonderful new daughter-in-law for us, Desiree. And then next month, my daughter is getting married to a wonderful future son-in-law. So I'm really looking forward to all those positive changes and the evolution and growth of our relationship. And I think the love just grows deeper in so many different ways as my kids grow up and mature and find themselves as well. But we're still connected and they still come home on Sunday night so we can have our family dinners together. So our relationships also don't end with death. This is my mom. So she was a really active part of the North Burnaby community and with our church at Cliff Avenue United. And she was my model for unconditional love because she was one person that always saw the best in me, even when I wasn't at my best. So she kind of inspired me to work hard and uh, to work hard to be kind and to make a difference in the lives of other people. And she was just such a good example for honesty and generosity and integrity. So when she died suddenly, quite a long time ago, 23 years ago in April, it was a shock because it was a sudden fatal heart attack without any warning. So it was really devastating because she was really at the center of our family's life. So she was the one that, made wonderful meals, always thought of everyone else first before herself. But what helped me come to terms with it was to realize my mom's greatest gift um, was really the love that she gave to me, that unconditional love, being loved just the way you are, even if we're not perfect. Someone that saw the best in you. So that kind of love she taught that I was worthy of being loved in that way. And that's a love that I can give forward to each of my kids and to my wife, to my patients, to my friends, to everyone that I can meet, so that we're really part of this love cycle, like the water cycle, like the water in your body, 60% of your body, you're just sharing it temporarily. It's not part of you to keep. And likewise, the love that we have from loved ones from the past and the present is not for us to keep forever, but is a gift to pass forward to others. So I know that legacy of my mom's love I pass to my children and everyone I can come in contact with in this life, and they also pass that forward. And that's the part of us that never dies. And ultimately, that's really the purpose of life. And our relationship to ourself is so important. So a lot of us have sub-personalities or that negative voice inside, like a frenemy. You would think that you would be siding with yourself, but often we don't. It's that background critic that points at all the things that are wrong in yourself and with your situation. It comes from that left side of the brain that's always evaluating things, usually from a negative way. It puts you down and it ignores your needs. So what is that inner frenemy, this negative self-talk and these core beliefs? They could be things like, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to be loved, I'll never be happy, I shouldn't even try. So they sometimes come from experiences in the past, perhaps trauma, or maybe even someone that you looked up to that kind of conveyed those words to you, and they kind of stick when you're a child, and they still reside with you and can come up at vulnerable times or be triggered by situations. But you can address the frenemy by channeling your best friend. So think of your best friend and how you feel about your best friend. Um, your best friend sees the best in you, accepts you just the way you are. They remind you that you're beautiful just the way you are. They rem they remember your successes and your strengths, and they remind you of that. And they connect you with your noblest values. They inspire you to be your best self. That's what a best friend does. Um, and we ought to be best friends to ourselves. So, if someone feels that way about you, there must be something about that that's true, so that you can believe that and to be your own best friend as well, to bring out the best in yourself with compassion. You can't live them, you can't live without them. Who am I talking about? Humans, of course. Yeah, Mr. Spock had to deal with that as a Vulcan. Humans with their crazy emotions and their thoughts. So we'll talk about the keys to healthy relationships or improving our relationships. So there's a concept of naive realism that humans, that means all of us, naively tend to believe that what we see is reality. So the way we see things and what we believe must be the way things really are. And we seem to forget that what we see is just like tunnel vision. It's just our mental representation of what we perceive through all of our senses, to sight, the sound, and we categorize them from our past experiences. So what we actually see out there is just a small spectrum that's really out there. And we really need other perspectives from other people to see more and to understand more. So each of us, through our upbringing, through our education, through our experiences, and what we're sensing around us, creates a unique mental model or map of how things really are, like who we are, what's out there, how the world works, how we should relate to other people. If we're open-minded and continue learning, we call this the growth mindset, we progressively revise and expand our mental models as we walk through life. So as we learn new things, have different experiences, meet new people, read more books, we expand our awareness of the world and our understanding of it. So to do this well, we need even more experiences and diverse ideas and points of view. So that's another benefit of connecting with others. We create the stories in our mind, our mental models, by the judging, comparing, conceptual mind. So that's the left side of the brain, the left cerebral hemisphere. And those stories are not true stories, they're just a version of reality from our perspective. If we don't examine these undeveloped and and we don't revise these ideas of what we see and who we are, they can just be handed down from your church, your family, and it limits our understanding of the greater world and our relationships. When you're not focused on a task and when you're not being mindful, our brain falls into this default mode network and it kind of mulls over and kind of creates that, reinforces that story of who we are in the world. And it's usually a very limited world with a very limited eye. Um, so when we're in these daydream modes, we're absorbed in self-identity and goal-directed behavior and dissociated from your whole self, your connected self. We fall into a kind of a trance where the mental model or mindset is very narrowed and limits how we see other people and how we see ourselves. And in that way of thinking, we accept incorrect beliefs about the world, other people, and ourselves, like those things that your inner frenemy, inner critic recurrently tells you at different times. And these beliefs really shape how you see the rest of the world and how you tell your story. So in his book, What Happens in Mindfulness, John Teasdale, psychologist, said that there's two ways of knowing. There's that left cerebral hemisphere way of black and white thinking, win-lose type thinking of concepts rather than things the way they are. So this is where a lot of our judgment thoughts and stories are created. And there's the other cognitive subsystem, which is associated with the right cerebral hemisphere. And that is more connected and holistic and connected with a sense of peace and connection and unconditional love and joy in the present moment. So again, that conceptual way of knowing associated in the left cerebral hemisphere, the world of ideas, and the holistic intuitive knowing from the right cerebral hemisphere. And it's that right brain function, that holistic intuitive way of knowing that we develop through mindfulness. So uh, Teasdale and Bernard postulated that that's really what's happening in mindfulness. We're connecting the left and right cerebral hemispheres. We're able to shine that um, kind, loving, broader, intuitive, connected perspective to the thoughts and ideas from the left cerebral hemisphere. It's connected through this area called the corpus callosum that connects both parts of the brain. We obviously need both sides of the brain and two ways of thinking to survive in the world. That left cerebral hemisphere with the critical thinking and the judgment helps us get jobs done, helps us create goals, helps us seek out danger. It keeps us safe. It's what we use most of the time in school, most of the time when we're driving, most of the time when we're doing our work. But the right cerebral hemisphere sees your world from the perspective of the whole and your connection with all of life. And the habits and thoughts and actions of the left brain can be transformed from the perspective of the right brain. So they need to work together. So you can imagine a progressive awakening with an evolution in your own mental models, how you see the world. Because like scientists, we're always constantly testing and revising theories with new information, and we can further create a better understanding of who we are and how we're connected with others through life experiences if we engage both sides of the brain. So the key to better relationships is this enduring drive to understand and recognize that every person carries their own unique story and understanding of any situation. And if you could read someone else's mind, you could see that their words and actions are justified from their perspective. Everyone is playing by the rules of a game that's been an integral part of their personal stories. And a lot of people are engaged in very competitive win-lose game of that conceptual judging and comparing left brain. And you can see the consequences of that when nations are led with that perspective, this one-upmanship and a life of competition, and rather than cooperation with other nations and other people. And the opposite perspective to the win-lose game is the infinite game. The goal is for everyone to win by working together. And the intent is for our game and our connection to one another to continue, and for humanity and the world to survive. The cycle of love that we talked about, that we're all a part of, is an essential part of this infinite game. So conflict and disagreement are inevitable because every one of us has evolved with a unique mental model. But if we're playing that win-lose game, you're going to try to win the argument or get your way because you believe your thoughts to be true. But if we play the infinite game, you seek to understand the other person, expand your perspective, and allow your mental model and that of the other person to grow together. So as in our relationships, we try to write a story together by listening to the other person's interpretation, the way they see things. You bring great strength and diversity that way to the greater story. And we come up with such a better story when we're cooperating and coordinating together. And we need to be more receptive in conversation. So we don't speak to be heard. We converse and listen so that we can understand one another. We need to visually show the other person that we're engaged and curious about their point of view by showing that we're open to new information, highlight the areas where we agree, and acknowledge and restate the other's point of view. We're all guilty of cognitive biases. These are thinking traps that are part of being human. They're kind of mental shortcuts, but they often cause a lot of conflict in our relationships, not only with those at home, but with everyone we interact with. We'll give some examples. The biggest one we all have is the negativity bias. So our ancestors survived by tuning into negative aspects in their world to identify danger out there. But because our brains are Velcro for the negative and Teflon to the positive, we need to see five positive things or thoughts to balance out each negative thought. That applies to relationships as well, as we'll further talk about when we talk about how to improve our intimate relationships. The cognitive bias of mind reading is believing that you really know what the other person is thinking, which we don't unless we actually ask them. Examples are, I know why she hasn't called me or he didn't answer my text, and or we're assuming she did that just to hurt me. We can counter that by a balanced thought, such as, I know why my friend I know why my friend didn't call me back. You can counter that by saying, I should give others the benefit of the doubt and maybe check things out and ask them, because it could be any number of things. The bias of overgeneralizing is making broad assumptions based on the facts that you see, such as you can't trust anyone because someone disappointed you or took advantage of you, or they are all the same. You have one person with a particular characteristic did you harm, then sometimes you can make assumptions that everyone like that would treat you the same way. But we can counter that overgeneralizing by more balanced thoughts that one rotten banana doesn't make the whole bunch bad, and other people are individuals just like me, and I shouldn't use prejudice and lump people together just by appearances or ethnic backgrounds. The thinking you're polarizing is all or nothing thinking, black or white, or good and bad type thinking, such as there's nothing positive in our relationship. We have nothing in common, kind of absolutes. But a more balanced thought to counter polarizing is actually I can always count on her to be there and look after the details I take for granted. We actually share important core values. The thinking error personalizing is just taking things too personally, such as he did that deliberately just to hurt me. A more balanced way of looking at that is maybe he's having a bad day. I'll just let that go. Catastrophizing is common for people that get very anxious, believing the worst things will happen. And that type of thinking just makes us more anxious, such as my boss probably thinks I'm useless and he's going to fire me. This can be balanced by something like my boss understands that I'm still learning and I should ask for some feedback. Disqualifying the positive means downplaying the positive aspects of the situation or minimizing the good, such as we used to have fun together, but now we just tolerate each other. And this could be balanced by the thought, actually, I really enjoyed our quiet day together shopping and running errands. So how do you come up with these more balanced thoughts if you can catch yourself making one of these cognitive errors or biases? One is to use the THINK acronym. T is for true. Is this thought true? H is helpful. Is this thought helpful to me in my situation? I is inspiring. Is this thought inspiring me to positive action? N is this thought necessary? Is this thought meeting my needs? And finally, K, is this thought kind? So one way you can run it through, but a really useful way is to think of your best friend. And if your best friend heard you say this, interpret your situation with this cognitive bias in your response, what would your best friend say to you that might balance things out, that might be a bit more kinder or give the benefit of doubt to yourself or to other people? So think about what you would tell a best friend if they were feeling the way you're feeling right now. So four mindsets that can get us into the right side of the brain, which is marked by a feeling of joy, peace, love, and compassion. Um, to feel connected with these are some of the dedicated meditations in mindfulness meditation to increase your sense of joy and being alive and connected with life and other people, to connect with a deep sense of peace and acceptance, to feel unconditional love and compassion for yourself, other people, and all living beings. So I'll guide you through a few of these meditations. And I'll show you a way that we can kind of connect it and to bring it about these feelings and bring that right brain online when we need it during the day when the left brain is getting into a lot of negative thinking about our situation or the other person. So let's nurture some joy. So in your imagination, you can close your eyes if you wish. In your imagination, bring to mind scenes from your memories that invoke selfless, timeless joy. These might be moments of flow when your abilities match the challenge at hand. Like it could be an art, or it could be driving, it could be a sport, or you could be communing and connecting with nature, or at play with children and sharing laughter with old friends. Or you can bring to mind experiencing awe and um, moments seeing a beautiful sight. So you could choose one of those where you feel this deep sense of selfless joy. Imagine what you're feeling. What sense do you have in your body? Are there smells or scents, sensations? If you're outdoors, you might imagine what it feels like to be in the sunlight, the sound of water, sound of nature, the sound of laughter if you're imagining children. So create a vivid scene with all of your senses as if you are reliving these memories of pure joy. And you'll know you're feeling it if you just notice that you have an easy smile on your face without even trying. And the more you practice visualizing these experiences of joy and living those experiences in each day, they'll be easier for you to connect to at other times when you might be feeling a little bored, a little bit blue, and maybe not as happy as you are in your imagination. But when you imagine these scenes and sensations and experiences of joy with all your senses, you can bring your thumb and index finger together so that you know that whenever you practice this visualization, join the thumb and index finger together, you know that if you need to bring joy to your thoughts and your feelings during the day at any time, you could bring the thumb and index finger together again and know your capability of experiencing this joy. And in our next meditation, we're going to foster a sense of peace, acceptance, or equanimity. So imagine yourself this time in your personal sanctuary of peace. It could be something from your memory or something in your imagination or someplace in real life, maybe your own home, a special room. Now, when you find yourself there, hear the sounds that bring you peace. Perhaps the sounds of nature, perhaps waves washing upon the shore if you're on the beach, maybe leaves rustling in the wind if you're in nature, maybe water trickling over rocks if you're near a stream, or it could be the serene music of Bach or Pachelbel. Feel the sensations that soothe your body and mind in this place of peace. You might inhale the scents that calm your mind, or feel yourself in the presence of a person or being, real or imagined, who invokes timeless peace. Sense their presence, their calmness, and the peace that you feel inside, knowing that you can accept everything compassionately. And you know that whenever you need to feel a sense of peace and calm, during the day, at work or at school or at home, where you want to have that sense of peace, you can reconnect to the peace that's already there in your imagination by bringing your thumb and middle finger together. And when you practice your meditation of peace with all of your senses, you can associate that with your thumb and middle finger together so that whenever you need to feel a sense of peace, you would feel those fingers together. And to foster a sense of unconditional love, what we call metta or agape, feel yourself in the presence of a person or being who accepts and loves you just the way you are. And see yourself also in the presence of a person or the people or a pet that you love just the way they are, unconditionally. Just sense that feeling of love towards the other and the feeling of love sent to you, the feeling of being loved. And see yourself connected to that universal cycle of love, accepting the love you've received throughout your life by so many people in so many forms, and sending that love to all whom you know and to all living beings. And as you're basking and enjoying being part of the cycle of love, being filled with love and being fully loving, you might bring your thumb and ring finger together so that when you wish to connect with these feelings of unconditional love toward yourself or others, you can bring that thumb and ring finger together and connect with it whenever you need to feel more love. And finally, a meditation on compassion. And bring to mind being in the presence of someone who understood your suffering, accepted you just the way you are, and lifted you up with caring words and actions. And recognize the suffering and deep vulnerability of another living being and express your deep caring, a deep, deep compassion. And you'll remember to connect with a sense of compassion, of being cared for whenever you need to feel compassion, when those negative frenemy voices are criticizing or putting you down. Bring to mind this feeling of being understood and accepted just the way we are, and knowing that you are lovable and good enough just the way you are. And when you're moved by the suffering of others and the needs of others who are lonely or isolated or vulnerable, you will remember to bring that same compassionate feeling into play, and may it come out in words and action. So, with that perspective of compassion, unconditional love, a deep sense of peace, and selfless joy, it gives us a different perspective in our relationships and how we're seeing other people, knowing that we just see a fraction of the world with our left cerebral hemisphere, with our thoughts and our ideas. Um, but if we work together, we can expand understanding first, seeking first to understand the ideas and the needs of the other person, and how we can work together to create something beautiful together and to meet one another's needs. So I'd like to share some really books I highly recommend for people that wish to improve on their relationships, because it takes work. Being married takes work. Being married is a real privilege and joy, but it does take maintenance and work like all good things in our life. You can't just have a wonderful car and then never change the oil or wash it or look after things when they're squeaking. So regular maintenance of our relationships is so important. So this is a great book that I read recently that I highly recommend, The Seven Principles for Making Marriage Work. A practical guide from the country's foremost relationship expert, John Gottman. So John and Julie Gottman created the Seattle Love Lab, where they actually studied couples live, like through one-way mirrors, as they kind of having just little conversations going about their lives in this kind of pretend apartment. And then they studied those couples for a number of years and saw which ones stayed together and which ones divorced or it didn't work out. And they were able to identify some of the key negative things. They'll call those the four horsemen of the apocalypse of impending divorce, or the seven principles that actually make marriage work. So I'll share some of these jewels, but the book is in the references in the key points handout on the Burnaby Division website and in the links that Leona kindly attached to the chat. So let's go through these principles. This is not like a full course, but just kind of gives you an idea of John Gottman's suggestions for making marriage work based on the evidence of his studies. Number one is happily married people have very detailed love maps. They call it love maps, which is a really deep, detailed understanding of the other person, like knowing their values, the key important things from their past life, what brings them joy, what makes their lives dreary, what they love to do, what charges their battery, and the things that bother them at work or at home. So the more we know about all those intimate details about the other person, the better we are in feeling connected to them and letting them know we're connected. It's not so great to have um, a big secrets or a lack of interest in the inner life of your partner. We all want to be appreciated, understood. And then as you'll see later, there are parts of ourselves that we keep hidden from other people, even from our spouses, and sometimes from ourselves too. So having that really deep, that desire to deeply know the other person really, really well. So they call that love maps. So enhance your love maps. Really know each other well. And you could do that with more open-ended questions, like those questions that really make you think about your deepest values. Like, what would you do if you had only 100 days left to live? If you could have a dinner with any person, living or dead, who would you like to have that dinner with? Like that conversation. So things that make you think and really your values come out. Number two is couples that work well, successful marriages, they nurture fondness and admiration. So each person shares a deep sense of respect and appreciation for the other person. That's so essential, just like we do for a best friend. So for marriages to work, relationships to work, that person should be like a best friend. The friendship is so important to the relationship. And we talked about those special things about our deep best friends. Um, and couples turn toward each other, successful ones, instead of away. So they study these couples and even little things in conversation, um, like, honey, look at this little post in Facebook, or look what's in this newspaper article. This is interesting. So the other person, even if they're doing something else, could turn towards them and show interest and talk about that what they brought up. Or you could totally ignore it, or you could just turn away or dismiss it. So couples that were successful and had lasting marriages turned towards each other in what he called these bids for connection. This little small talk. So connecting in these small ways. Number four, partners let the other influence their decisions by making the other's ideas and feelings, by taking them into account. Like you just don't go out and buy a new car without spending a lot of time and talking about what the effect is on the whole family and checking out the preferences and the ideas and the point of view of the other person. So not to make those decisions without checking it out and thinking about the other person. Uh, and then to recognize that there's two big kinds of problems. Some problems are solvable, and then some problems are never solved. They're kind of perpetual problems. And it doesn't mean that the unsolvable perpetual problems mean that this marriage isn't going to work, because a lot of couples make things work. So the solvable problems are kind of minor short-term issues that we can squabble over, but they can also turn into major arguments if we don't really have a dialogue and look at each other's points of view and alternative points of view and find the best solution based on our shared values and acknowledging the needs and desires of each person. And perpetual problems are those that come up repeatedly over time, like arguments about religion or money. Both can be major sources of conflict, but we can find ways of talking about them without distressing one another, just managing our anger, our resentment, and being aware of our own emotions, being responsible for um, being a grown-up when we're having these conversations. Sometimes couples can get trapped in gridlock, stuck in the same recurrent problem. So again, we each have to accept our own responsibility for productive dialogue to move forward rather than just getting angry and shutting down. And we need to create shared meaning. So we all have our own values and experiences. As a couple, we need to have a shared agreement on our roles in a relationship, and it must be mutually acceptable, and to recognize our shared values. So those four horsemen of the apocalypse that we try to minimize because they are dangers if we allow them to escalate as criticism. So excessive criticism often breeds contempt, like complete dislike or even hatred of your partner. And then the other partner starts developing defensiveness, whether fighting back or trying to just protect themselves from this endless barrage of hateful, critical language. And it might lead to stonewalling, where there's just complete shutdown and no conversation and therefore no connection. So one of the remedies is to foster the PSO. So John and Julie Gottman talked about fostering the positive sentiment override, where a partner's positive overall view of the relationship and the other overrides occasional negative behaviors. It's like we are with our best friends. Like our best friends could have really, really bad habits. They can even do things that are not so great once in a while, but we just have this mutual positive sentiment and we see the best in them and try to bring out the best in that other person. So we can put up with a few little idiosyncrasies like not using deodorant or uh, not always paying the tip. Um, so ways that we can foster this in our relationships is remembering that 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative. So maintain at least 5 positive interactions with your partner for every negative one. So if you have a little argument, you have to kind of create 5 positive interactions, like a shared meal together, like going out, going for a walk together, holding hands, enjoying a movie together, having a laugh together, showing mutual gratitude. And again, that friendship aspect, nurturing friendship by turning towards each other when one another makes a bid for connecting, like, honey, what do you think about this? And then answering and engaging rather than ignoring or pushing away. And appreciation, recognizing the other's strengths and expressing your gratitude for the other person, especially for the little things. Another recent book is by Sarah Nazarjada on love by design, 6 ingredients to build a lifetime of love. She did a TED talk that was pretty good. So her 6 ingredients to build a lifetime of love are attraction, knowing that immediate attraction um, will change over time. That some people are in love with falling in love, which is just that romantic love that doesn't last. Enduring love takes work and it takes effort to continue to see the best in that person. And often when we're falling in love, these little quirks are really endearing, but later on, when you're after many years, those little quirks become quite irritating. Um, and then a patient of mine gave an example. He was really would get angry because his wife would leave the back porch light on during the daytime. So he had to keep on reminding her to turn it off. But then I told him, how would you feel like if something happened in your relationship or to your wife and she was gone, like forever from your life? And then you went outside and the porch light was turned off. Wouldn't you wish that porch light was left on? So those things that can irritate us at one point will be the things that we miss if that person wasn't around anymore. So it's another way of thinking about those little irritations. The second ingredient is respect. That you have to have this deep sense of respect and admiration, like John Gottman said. 3 is trust. You have to trust the other person, and we have to earn the trust of the other person to know that we're reliable. 4 is a shared vision, similar to what John Gottman said. And 5 is compassion, that deep caring. And 6 is loving behavior, like turning towards each other and expressing things. Richard Schwartz pioneered the internal family systems model. So that internal family is not your family of origin or your kids and your wife. That's the family of personalities. That's part of who you are. As in Walt Whitman saying, I contain multitudes. we contain many subpersonalities, and it's not a dissociative disorder or a psychopathology. This is the way we are. And none of those parts is bad. However, we put a lot of those childhood selves into exile because they are hurt, they were traumatized. So we hide those things away. So internal family physicians was developed by Richard Schwartz based on evidence. And it was a non-pathologizing psychotherapy that views the mind as composed of sub-personalities or parts, and a compassionate core self, which is similar to that right side of the brain self that is unconditionally loving, compassionate, and kind. So this model treats trauma and emotional distress by helping us to understand and harmonize and unburden those inner parts to foster internal balance and self-leadership. So let's talk a little bit about those parts. So you have that true all-encompassing self, like the self we nurture with mindfulness and reconnect with our meditations. So this is the core of who you are, your real self, not the limited self of the ego that your left side of the brain creates. Oh, Leona, can you still see my slides? It seems to have disappeared on my view.
Yeah, we see your desktop now.
Okay, I'm gonna reopen my slide. I don't know why it slipped away.
We have a gremlin, perhaps.
Could be. No one's in the room, so I can't blame anyone else.
That's unfortunate.
I was close to the end too, so I'm just gonna see if I can. Maybe I could stop
Great.
share.
Well, while you're figuring that out, I did have at least one question in the chat. But if anybody has any other questions for Dr. Wong as we're coming to the end of the presentation, there will be time for questions. So
Okay, can you see the big slide?
again, yeah, yeah. Are you gonna go full screen?
I'm gonna go with full screen just so that we don't lose the slide.
There we go. Yeah, I mean that works. You can
Yeah.
see
So
great
we have that
visuals.
core self, which is calm and curious and compassionate, unconditionally loving and creative and connected with joy. And we have in that bottom left corner the exiles. So these are created in early childhood often or other times of trauma where there's fear and shame and loneliness and neediness and pain. So we're as adults, we're kind of embarrassed by that and we hide it away because it's so, so vulnerable. But it can be kind of triggered by interactions with our partners and other people that we work with. So this is why partners are so good at somehow subconsciously triggering the worst emotional reactions from one another, because it's often their mutual sub-personalities that are connecting and fighting and disagreeing. The managers are trying to protect the system, trying to protect the exiles. So they control things. They're trying to do things proactively. So they're kind of judging and they're critical and pessimistic and kind of passive in other times. And then the firefighters are um, out there and they come out in a very defensive way, just to fight the feelings that are coming from those exiled smaller cells that come out. And they can come out in anger or violence or tuning out or engaging in fantasy or engaging in drugs just to numb those painful feelings coming from the exiled cell. Um, so being self-led means from that deeper self to recognize those portions, subpersonalities, those parts of ourselves and to address them. Not easy to do, but if you think about your life and these feelings that keep coming out, you recognize that painful feeling that came out in that situation with your partner um, isn't completely from what your partner said. It just reminded you or triggered something, a memory of something that happened to you in the past that really triggered that smaller exiled self. So recognize that we might learn better ways of managing those feelings, acknowledging that part of yourself, accepting and loving it, giving it the care that it needs. And it comes from that deep sense of compassion and a sense of peace that we're trying to nurture with our meditations. And of course, seeing a counselor, a psychologist, or a registered clinical counselor who works in internal family systems can kind of guide you and recognize your subpersonalities and how you can get them working together with that deeper self so that you can be self-led. And that when your partner is being triggered and acting from one of these subpersonalities, then you'll be able to be self-led and to be compassionate and calm and clear and caring and to nurture that part of themselves as well. Of course, all of us in the couple should be reading the same book at the same time. I strongly recommend John Gottman's book about the seven um, practices of successful marriages. So it's in the references in the keynotes handout. Again, that self is that confident, compassionate, calm essence at the center of the self that remains undamaged by that trauma and acts as the inner leader when we're kind of healing and harmonizing the different parts that often conflict with one another. This is another book that's written by Richard Schwartz, particularly about applying internal family systems to your intimate relationships. So kind of recognizing this dynamic and how to recognize when you're acting from one of the exiles or from one of the firefighters or managers. And likewise when your partner is as well. And then what you can do in those cases. So when you're thinking about your life story that you're writing together, remember that every life story is really a love story. So when I think about the end of life, it's you, at the end of life, we're not going to wish that we worked more or earned more or gained more or bought more because we can't take any of those things with us, and all those things will disappear. We don't wish that we accomplished more, we're more famous because everyone's going to forget our names in less than a generation. But what really matters is how we were loved in this life. That's what our memories are all about and how we loved. And I think the purpose of life for every one of us um, is to be loved, to accept love, to know what it feels like to be loved just the way you are unconditionally, and to learn to love others the same way. So it's all about love. And that's why our connection is so important. So please share what you've learned with one another. I know this just touches on many ideas to improve our relationships. So really emphasize how important our relationships are to our health, all our relationships, even those weak ties, those everyday conversations in the elevator or the parking lot and in your neighborhood with your neighbors across the fence. All those are really important for our mutual well-being. And to recognize that the most important friendship is the one with your partner, your life partner, and really nurture. You're not in competition. You're on the same page to learn to be a better loving person, to learn more from the other person, to share our narrative and create a greater narrative together. And our next talk is going to be on a Tuesday. We usually do Thursdays, but Leona kindly accommodated changing it to Tuesday, March 24th, because my daughter Sarah and her fiance Jonathan G are having their rehearsal dinner, so I couldn't really be doing this at the same time, and I couldn't miss it. But I'll be sharing what we all should know about lung disease, to know whether you're at risk for lung disease, recognizing the symptoms of asthma, chronic bronchitis, or emphysema, knowing the difference between bronchitis or pneumonia and know when you should see a doctor and to know who should get these different vaccines. There's so many vaccines that are optional for adults at different ages. So I'll talk about those and how much they cost and who should be getting it. And also talk about people that should be screened for lung cancer. So not people aren't aware that there's a lung cancer screening program that people that have smoked a number of years are eligible for. And we'll talk about sleep apnea, how to recognize it, how we test for it, and I'll also tell you where you can get the machines for way cheaper than most people are buying it for. So I'll talk about that, the ins and outs of testing, and that's important because that it affects many aspects of health. So please share that. I think if I'll make it worthwhile for everyone to come. There'll be something that'll be useful for you or a loved one, but particularly those that are wondering about vaccines or wondering if they have a serious respiratory infection, they should see the doctor. The key things you should be looking out for. So that's it. I left a few minutes so I can answer any questions, but of course, this won't be like a talk show about relationship problems because I'm only expert on one long-term relationship, which is with my wife. My first lesson I learned that one man's treasure is junk to his wife. So, yeah,
Love
yeah.
this story. Are you telling the story?
No, better not say anything else just in case she's listening.
Okay. It's a good one. Awesome. I did have a question if we're ready.
Yes.
Um, what impact do you feel this isolation of COVID is still having on society?
Um, it was it was really hard for everybody, but especially for those that didn't have technology, like a lot of the elderly, or people that just can't afford it. We're kind of lucky that we can afford to have a smartphone or a tablet or even computers. But a lot of people can't afford that. But also the elderly, that our patients in long-term care where they kind of ban visitors or you can't go if there's an outbreak, that was deadly and devastating for so many people that really declined emotionally and cognitively and physically during that time. So I think some people are still suffering from that. Um, then a lot of we got used to doing Zoom meetings, so even it's kind of normal. A lot of people are working from home still. Some people are being forced to go back to the office, but we get really stuck, and then you don't know whether or not you've seen someone in person. You don't. It's nice to have that small talk that you can't really have at an in-person gathering where you can connect together, and we really miss that small talk rather than just getting to business. And everyone's a bit shy when you're on the kind of a Hollywood Squares setup. It's so artificial. It's also so weird, like these Zoom meeting. If you've been to a Zoom meeting, it's just like a seance. So you sometimes people are trying to come in the room. I sense someone's trying to get in the room, but I can't. I could hear them, but I can't see them, or I can see them, but I can't hear them. That's it's kind of a weird, spooky thing that we kind of taken for granted, but it's not the real thing. But I'm glad that that is that substitute for people that are living far away.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're a hybrid in our office with the Burnaby division, and the days in the office are actually very special. So it's not, the olden times when it was 5 days a week you were doing a commute to the office. It's two, sometimes three, and it's so nice to just actually get up, get dressed, go
Mm.
be around people, actually have a chat with somebody around the water cooler. So it's great. It's nice we're very privileged to have that hybrid.
I
Um,
actually there was a subset of people that did that really helped their social connection. So people wearing masks. So a lot of people there's actually a lot of staff that we hired. I didn't really know what they looked like because we hired them when they had masks, and then when they didn't have to wear masks, I didn't recognize them. And a lot of people fell in love with the pandemic and didn't really get to look at each other's faces, so they kind of get surprised after. But yeah, so a lot of people are really attractive with masks on. Probably we all look better with masks on.
Depends on the day. Depends on the day. That's great. Okay, well, you know what? People are kind of quiet. There's some thank yous in the chat just around the presentation and things that they might pay attention to in their relationships. I like life, how to keep life more peaceful. I really appreciate that, Christina. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
there's lots of great things in there.
I always thought like I don't like arguments, so I always thought something was wrong if there's conflict or arguments. But my wife taught me that's part of part of being married and being in a relationship, you have to speak your mind and say how you feel. If you can't do that with your best friend, then that's yeah, you have to express yourselves and you need to meet people where they're at. That's how you get to know each other and work together.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with my partnership and it's not because I'm yeah, like when you're married a long time, it's kind of like if you have a family doctor in BC, you're gonna stick with that family doctor, even though he's not the best, even though he's old, he makes mistakes because you don't think he could do any better.
Never heard that before.
Yeah. So that's why a lot of people are attached. Is yeah, they don't
Yeah.
think they can do better because they know that thousands of people are still looking.
No, yes, that's very
Yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah.
That should be on a t-shirt. Awesome. Oh wait, last chance, folks. Anybody have any questions? Oh, actually, I think I missed one. Oh, Craig was having a conversation with us about Vulcans, so about Spock. So that's sort of off the record.
Yeah,
Thanks, Craig.
Craig's a nerd like me.
I love it. I always like to see when he logs in. Um, Excellent. Well, be sure to register for March 24th. We'll be here. It might be a little bit later by the time we start. We're only a month and a bit down the road. So spring is coming, which is nice. And oh, argue was a daunting word. Prefer hash it out.
Yeah, that's a good word to
That's a good
hash it
one.
out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Thanks, Karen. Well, if we have nothing else, maybe we'll just call it an evening. And
Yeah, and happy Family Day weekend to everyone, or
yes.
Chinese New Year weekend if you're calling it that, or Valentine's weekend if you're brainwashed into thinking that's a real
Exactly.
holiday.
I agree with your wife. I bought myself flowers, but I do that every week anyway, so.
Yeah, I remember the first Valentine's when we were married. I went out to get the ice cream cake, and then my wife ran out to get the card.
Oh, see, this is like
Yeah, so
yin and yang,
yeah,
right?
you could tell who the romantic one in this relationship is.
Yeah, it's good. It's all about balance. That's
Yeah,
great. All right. Well, thank you folks for joining us. It's always nice to be here. I really love this part of my job.
and I love working with you too.
Yeah,
Thanks, Leona.
it's great. Okay, well, you guys have a great evening. We'll see you in March. And don't forget to take a couple of minutes just to do our evaluation when I close down the webinar. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Good night.
Bye. Good night.